Now the wind carries broken songs and mournful ballads pour down from rooftops. Yet hope remains hidden in the waves of the Euphrates in a child's dream. The cool waters of the Euphrates caressed the land, bringing abundance, and the sound of copper craftsmen's hammers echoed through the narrow streets of Aleppo. In these streets, steeped in history, the millennia-old paths showcased civilization. The friendly gatherings of different religions, languages, and cultures transformed into peace over bread and olives. But now the wind there has given way to mournful dirges. Syria began to take shape under the military coup orchestrated by Hafez al-Assad's Alawite junta in 1971. Hafez al-Assad solidified his regime through a major massacre against the Muslim population in Hama in 1982, with support from the West, Russia, and the so-called Islamic Republic of Iran. After the death of this murderous leader in 2000, his son Bashar al-Assad took power. However, the ongoing issues and repressive policies following his rule further ignited the long-simmering anger of the people. In 2011, inspired by the Arab Spring, peaceful anti-regime protests began in various cities across Syria. However, Assad's Alawite regime opted to suppress these protests with brutal force. The bloody crackdowns on citizens who sought only to live more freely in their homeland eventually led to a broader uprising. With Russia and Iran entering the region to support the regime, and the United States establishing a presence under the pretext of combating ISIS, the conflict evolved into a war involving numerous nations. The war deepened further over the years. Since 2012, Syria's Alawite army and its Iranian-backed groups have captured 90% of Aleppo, previously held by opposition forces. The Aleppo massacre was one of the most dramatic and devastating phases of the Syrian civil war. Regime forces, sectarian militias brought in by Iran, and Russian warplanes targeted neighborhoods, schools, and hospitals densely populated by civilians. The regime caused massive destruction by dropping barrel bombs on residential areas, even resorting to chemical weapons in its attacks. Tens of thousands fled the advancing regime forces, seeking refuge in camps or neighboring countries such as Turkey, Iraq, Jordan, and Lebanon. Although the massacre provoked global outrage, the international community failed to take effective action. The Aleppo massacre remains not only a tragedy for Syria, but a profound scar on the conscience of global humanity. The occupying Ba'ath regime of Syria deployed chemical weapons in the eastern Ghouta region of Damascus on August 21, 2013, killing over 1,400 civilians, most of them children. Eastern Ghouta suffered a massacre in which the secular and sectarian Ba'ath Party, the Alawite army, and Iranian-backed Shiite militias used nearly all the weaponry at their disposal. Many women and children were affected by the poisonous gas. The opposition forces were compelled to evacuate the area following a forced agreement with the regime forces and Russia. Millions of Syrians were displaced, seeking refuge in neighboring countries in Europe. Hundreds of thousands lost their lives. Despite committing atrocities more brutal and extensive than Israel, these forces faced no significant outcry from the West or the rest of the world. The Syrian people have managed to survive solely due to Turkey's unconditional and fraternal support. Ultimately, Turks and Syrians, bound by the shared history, destiny, and faith of a century ago, continue to resist oppression together. The tragedy inflicted upon the Syrian people has been etched into the shameful pages of history. Alongside the stories of those killed or tortured, the plight of millions who were displaced and forced into becoming refugees has also become a part of this historical record. Syrians attempting to flee to Europe by sea faced yet another tragedy when their boats capsized during the journey. One of the most poignant symbols of this tragedy was Aylan Kurdi. Aylan, a 3-year-old boy, was trying to escape the conflict in Syria with his family. Until the end of 2011, Aylan and his family lived in the Rukn al-Din district of Damascus, but as the clashes intensified, they returned to their village of Beydik. After the Kobani assault, they came to Turkey with many other refugees. The family made 3 unsuccessful attempts to reach Europe. On Wednesday, September 2nd, Aylan, his mother Rehana, father Abdullah, and brother Ghalib boarded a boat at Ali Hoka Cape early in the morning. A few hours later, as the waves grew stronger, the captain abandoned the boat. Abdullah described the moment. "I tried to steer the boat, but a huge wave struck it. That's when everything happened. I tried to hold on to my children and wife, but I couldn't. They died one by one. Little Aylan lost his life on September 2nd, 2015, when the boat he was on capsized while trying to cross to Greece. His lifeless body, washed ashore in Bodrum, became a symbol of the plight endured by refugees. Aylan's harrowing photograph, which shook the world, garnered widespread outrage in the international press and led to an increase in donations to aid organizations. However, no amount of aid could bring back little Aylan or the countless other children who perished in the war. Sadly, Syria remains under the occupation of a cruel regime supported by Iran, Russia, and the United States. Despite 13 years of massacres, losses, torture, bloodshed, and tears, Syrians continue to hope for the liberation of their homeland and the departure of the oppressive Ba'ath regime, along with its foreign backers. Since Aylan's death, nothing has changed. This crisis in Syria has scarred the lives of children and their hopes for the future, but it has not extinguished them. Turkey's support, hospitality, and fraternal hand continue to keep alive the hopes of the oppressed Syrian people.